Welcome back to the course lecture on the embedded systems. And in this lecture, I'd like to wind up the first chapter that is the introduction to the embedded systems. And first of all, I just would like to just explain what a power pin and a ground pin are. In the last chapter, we finished up till the typical hardware. And in this chapter, in this lecture video, we'd like to finish the remaining parts of the first chapter. First of all, I would like to explain about the power pin. The first thing to know is that, with very few exceptions, each chip in any circuit has got a power pin. Okay, each chip in any circuit has got a power pin. Okay, this power pin is also called as the VCC pin. So it must be connected to the signal that is always high. Okay, and the other pin is called the ground pin. It should be connected to the signal that is always low. We need to keep these two in the mind. The VCC pin should be connected to the signal that is always high, and the ground pin must be connected to the signal that is always low. VCC should be connected to this high signal, and the ground should be connected to the low signal. So just keep these in mind. I'll just get back to this particular screen again. Meanwhile, I'd like to explain uh, open collector and tri-stating outputs. This is a very important concept. So one special class of outputs are the open collector outputs. They allow you to attach outputs of several devices, okay, outputs of several devices to drive a single signal. In general, what happens, the normal outputs, they drive signals high or either they drive signals low. But in an open collector output, it can drive the outputs low or let them float. So what do I mean by this? So in an open collector output, there is no such thing called as bus fight. Several open collector outputs, they are all attached to a single signal. So say for example, I have four outputs and all the four outputs I'm attaching to a single signal, then my overall resultant signal would depend on what these four outputs are. In case of all four are high, then my resulting output would be high. If all four are low, then the resulting output would be low. In case if there are it depends on the majority of the signals. Okay, say for example, just consider this particular signal. You can see it, right? This particular circuit where you have a pull-up resistor, you have two chips and a microprocessor. What do I mean by this? What does this particular thing do? Okay, if microprocessor has only one input for an interrupt signal, but I have two different devices that need to signal interrupts, then the following two conditions hold. If suppose the following two conditions hold, that is, the interrupt input on the microprocessor is asserted when it is low. The interrupt output on the two devices are asserted when they are low. So what do I mean by this? So say for example, if one of the devices wants to signal the interrupt, if any one of the devices wants to signal the interrupt, then it drives its interrupt out low. Say for example, if this device wants the interrupt wants the signal to signal the interrupt, then this particular device drives its interrupt output as low. Okay, and the signal in, and this, see, you can see like this goes, then this signal in will go low and the microprocessor will respond to the interrupt signal. Okay, say for example, if this wants the signal interrupt, so this says that this drives, this particular device drives its interrupt output as low, then this particular signal INT interrupt will go low and this microprocessor will respond to the interrupt signal. Say for example, if chip 1 doesn't need and chip 2 also doesn't need the signal to or if neither device wants to signal the interrupt, then each will let its output flow, and this pull-up resistor will cause the INT to go high. Okay, then when this goes high, this INT signal goes high, then the microprocessor will sense that interrupt inputs are not asserted. Okay, so the most important thing is the pull-up resistor is necessary for this particular circuit to work. Otherwise, this INT signal would float when neither device wanted to interrupt. So any of the device wants the signal to interrupt, they must give the signal. They must give the signal interrupt flow. Then this INT shows the signal interrupt flow. Then the microprocessor responds. If neither of these two devices want, or neither of the devices want to signal the interrupt, then the pull-up resistor comes into the place, and the pull-up resistor generates the signal high. So when this goes high, the microprocessor will understand that the interrupt input is not asserted. Okay, perfect. The pull-up resistor, what this does is it ensures that the INT goes high in this particular situation when neither of the devices are ready to take up the signal. Okay, so that's a very good part of it. And yeah, there is something called as tri-stating output as well. So what is a tri-stating output? Before that, I'll just want you to make a note in such a way that we cannot omit the resistor and connect this INT directly to VCC. If you did this, so you would have a bus fight on your hands. Okay, as soon as one of the devices tried to drive low, the other provided electric power, then it would try going to high. It is like either going low or either going high. There is a toggling between the situation of high and low. The resistor provides necessary buffer to prevent this bus fight especially. Okay, say for example, now I'll just drive you out to the tri-stating outputs. Standard parts either drive the output signals high or drive them low. Open collector outputs drive the signals low or let them float. Okay, they drive their signals low or they allow them float. That's what we were looking in this case of these two devices. Another class of output which can drive the signals high, drive them low or drive them float. So some parts or standard parts drive the signals high or drive them low. Open collector outputs can drive the signals low or float. But the tri-state outputs can drive the signals to high, low or float. Okay. So I'll just show a good example of this tri-state driver as well, where say I think yes, this is a good example for a tri-state driver. Okay. This triangular symbol in that schematic is called as, this is the tri-state driver. Okay, tri-state driver works in such a way, when the signal is asserted, then this particular output would be the same as the input. When the signal is not asserted, then the output floats. Say for example, your input is some A, your output would also be some A. If it is not asserted, then the output would be a float. Got it? So now let's get into the topic. In this particular circuit diagram, say for example, there is one more input here. See, it's just by mistake I just cropped it. It's very simple. I have some input C like this, and even that is connected to a tri-state output. Just imagine like a triangle stuff, and that is connected to the tri-state output, and the output from this is connected to this particular thing, all the combined three outputs. So say for example, you have select A, select B and select C. Okay, and the tri-state, or else I'll just do it in this way. If I select A and B and C are not selected, the tri-state driver A can drive the output signal high or low, okay, based on the input. Whereas the tri-state drivers B and C, they do not drive anything. Okay, as I said, the output signal will reflect the input of the driver for which the select is asserted. Say for example, I've selected B and I've not selected A and C. Then this tri-state driver would reflect the input of the driver B, because the drive B is selected, right? So it would reflect the input of driver B. It's very simple. whichever it is selected, it would reflect the input of that particular driver. Okay, say for example, consider some extremely common situation, that is in this circuit or in a circuit, a microprocessor, a memory chip, and some input output device must send bytes to one another. It must send some data to another. And we have multiple sets of data signals, like 8 signals for the memory to send bytes to the microprocessor and 8 more for the microprocessor to send bytes to the input output device. If all the devices can tri-state their data output signals, you can use one collection of data signals to interconnect all of them. That's what we are doing. We have say for example, 3 tri-state drivers and all the inputs, and I'm just using one collection. I'm just using one connector where I'm able to connect all these particular outputs. Okay. When the microprocessor wants to send the data to the memory or the input device, the memory tri-state outputs, the microprocessor can drive the data onto those data signals. Very simple. I'll just repeat it. In case if the microprocessor wants to send data to the memory, the input output device and the memory tri-state their outputs, and the microprocessor can drive its data onto the data signals. A common convention used is the dot. The common convention used in this particular diagram is the dot, where you can see right, this particular dot. This is like the 3 tri-state driver outputs intersect, and this particular dot indicates that these signals are connected to one another. That's very simple. You must be knowing this. And the usual convention on a schematic is that two crossing lines on a schematic are not connected without a dot. For example, the input A signal is not attached to select B. You can see it right. The input A signal, the signal is not attached to select B. Select B is not attached to input A or select C. Nor the input B is connected to select C. All these 3 are independent. This is one kind of convention which you can follow. Okay, so this is regarding the open collector output and the tri-state output. These 2 are very much important, and these come as some of your basic considerations when going for the when preparing for the exam. And next one is memory. Memory, I will not cover much of the memory. It's very simple. It is random access memory and read-only memory. You can just go through these online, and it's very simple. You're learning from your very low classes regarding RAM and ROM. So I will not cover that particular topic, and I'll do one thing. I'll just try to split this video into 2 parts, because in the next video I'll be able to discuss about the buses and what are the additional devices on the buses. Then if possible, I'll try to cover the bus handshaking and no handshake. And then the important one is direct memory access, DMA. We call it as DMA, and I'll explain the DMA timing diagram. And then you have to come to the interrupt latency, and the most important shared data problem. If possible, I'll try to even cover the watchdog timers. And yeah, microprocessor architecture and all, like I think you people can go, because you should have a good knowledge on the microprocessors. So that's it. And I'll even tell you about the atomic and critical sections, for where firstly I'll tell you the shared data problem, then how to solve the shared data problem, followed by atomic and critical section. This all I would do it in the next video, because this video is somewhat important, the tri-stating outputs and the open collector output. So let me isolate this video from the remaining, and in the next video, or probably one more video, we'll try to finish the first chapter. Thank you.